Our next speaker is my dear brother. I'm going to say this, brother, my captain, Martin Kuscus. Martin Kuscus has enjoyed a long and fruitful career as a leader in business, government, and the church. Now, according to Martin, his defining moment occurred on the 9th of October, 1982, when he gave his life to Jesus Christ. After graduating from UNISA with a BA, Martin spent 17 years in the nursing profession. He was a nurse, a male nurse, and later found the Lord redirecting his focus. In 1994, he became the first MEC of Finance in the Northwest Province, where he completed 2 successive terms. He then served as CEO of the South African Bureau of Standards until 2009, and is currently the chairperson of 2 major funds, a non-executive director of Netcare, and occupies a few other directorships in some leading institutions in our country. He also earned a postgraduate diploma in company direction from GIMT and attended various executive development programs, including the prestigious Leaders in Development at Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Martin, you didn't include that you attended Lead Like Jesus as well. That was also quite prestigious. Martin's mission is to be a thought leader, developing Christian leaders in the marketplace for kingdom. A thought leader for kingdom impact. Along with his rich experiences, Martin's strategic and developmental skills enables him to exercise effective leadership, transcend the various cultures in South Africa, and convey a message of hope and transformation. Martin is the best part of Martin. He's here today. Elizabeth, please stand up. Martin acknowledges his wife has been married for 34 years, and they have 3 grown children, a pillar of strength to him. They are longtime members of Rhema Church in Randburg, where Martin serves on the Financial Advisory Board. Please join me in welcoming our brother, Martin Kuscus.
Thank you, Jason. Well, it's almost, as people alluded to earlier, it's almost 3 years, just over 3 years ago, when about 30 of us were sitting in this hall. It was very cold that weekend, by the way. And some of you were here will recall. And, if a guy can make me to cry in the second day, then I'm bound to come back the third day. And that is what my dear brother Moen, and I'm glad to see you again here and just share this wonderful moment. We've never imagined in our wildest dreams that this will ultimately happen. And all praise be to God. Now, before I get too carried away with all the commercial breaks about Lead Like Jesus and all those sort of things, also special welcome to Phyllis Henry, Jim Montgomery, and all the other leaders. But a special word of thanks to Pastor Peter for the vision and the foresight. I know you're very supportive of Lead Like Jesus. And out of this church, the impact on the kingdom at this point in time can't be measured, but we know that it's going to be very profound, not only in this country, but throughout the world, throughout the region here. Well, I don't want to sound like Elizabeth Taylor. With her 6th husband, I won't keep you that long. But, we're also not just wrestling against flesh and blood and principalities, we're also wrestling against the clock. And therefore, I would like to to be disciplined and stick to my mandate for the morning. Or is it afternoon? No, in the morning. And I've been asked to speak, as people already alluded earlier on, within the Lead Like Jesus framework. We speak about the head, the heart, the hands, and the habit. And I'm going to deal this morning with the hands of a leader. The hands is what we do to transmit what is in our heart and our head into tangible reality. Is those type of effective leadership behavior, as we've heard earlier on, lead like Jesus, it's about love. And how do we translate that love into action? I read an article recently, and the writer stated that half of the world's people, half of the problems in the world are caused by people who have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Ever thought about it? And you see, this culture is primarily survivalist and self-centered in nature. And it can create a lot of problems because a lot of time and energy is spent in contestation instead of productive activity. We find a situation under specific leaders, people's careers, they might be highly skilled, they might be well qualified, but their careers are prematurely aborted because of the lack of proper leadership there. Value can be destroyed. Shareholder value, reputational value, all those type of things can be destroyed because of this very, very deep-seated sense of self-centeredness. And on a daily basis, we witness around in our environment as we interact with people, how people just so expediently abandon values. There's all manner of betrayed trust, exploitation, manipulation, and these things are done by very powerful people in society. People so easily drift away from commitment, and the first question that comes to mind, what can I get out of it? It's not what they can invest into a situation, what I can get out of it. And some call it the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. And as Veronica warned us this morning about the rat race, you might win that race, but you will remain a rat. And the world system is increasingly running out of options because it is so saturated with self-centeredness and people are on an intense ego trip. And the world is crying out there for humaneness, for authenticity, and something that has a greater sense of meaning. And what is so encouraging is that we have got the answer. You see, Jesus Christ was indeed one of the greatest leaders that ever graced the face of the earth. And he said in Matthew 20, verse 25 and 26, and this scripture was quoted so many times, but you know, I like the way Eugene Peterson puts it in the Message translation. He says, "You've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around. How quickly a little power goes to their heads. But it's not going to be like that with you. Whoever wishes to be great among you must become your servant." As believers, we need to set a new standard in the marketplace and model one that is totally contrary to the current prevailing system. You see, Christianity is a religion of paradoxes. How do you reconcile the fact that we are instructed that if you are slapped on the one side, you must turn the other side as well? How do we reconcile the fact that we've been asked to walk 1 mile to actually walk 2 miles? How do we reconcile the fact that death is in return for life? How do we reconcile the fact that we've got to offer up praise for a spirit of heaviness? The first will be last. Bless those that curse you, and greatness through servanthood. We are in this world, but not of this world. We are here to uphold a different value system.
because we are here to establish a different kingdom with different rules, because we're serving a different king. Now, how did Jesus go about setting these new standards? In Matthew 4, verse 18 to 22, Jesus called his first disciples. And the scripture reads as follows. He says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. And Jesus, come unto me, come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will make you fishers of men. They immediately left their nets and followed him. And going from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. He called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. The central theme of the scripture, it's called to commission. And Richard Parker puts it so beautifully. He says, God does not call people who are qualified. He calls people who are willing and then qualifies them. If me and you were accepted to serve in God's kingdom based on qualifications, I'm sure the committees will kept us out. The selection processes would have been so onerous and none of us would have qualified. But through the grace of God, by just surrendering ourselves and submitting ourselves to the lordship and authority of Jesus Christ, I've seen it happening in my own life, and I'll tell you about it a little bit later, that I didn't qualify at all, but by the grace of God. And Ken Blanchard put it so beautiful when Jesus called his disciples to follow him. He pledged his full support and guidance as they develop into fishers of men. And this is the duty of a servant leader, the ongoing investment of the leader's life into the lives of those who follow. You see, Jesus used a total different method to develop his disciples. And in the Lead Like Jesus jargon, philosophy, we speak about performance coaching. Jesus didn't tell Simon and Peter and Andrew and James, he didn't send them to go and Google on www.servantleadership.com, and there's an online course there with a self-assessment that will make you a servant leader. I'm not against online learning, don't get me wrong. He didn't say, well, I'll arrange a seminar for you. I'll get you a bursary to go to one of the prestigious universities to go and study in servant leadership. He said, I will make you. I will make you. And this is a very important distinction in the life of a servant leader. That ongoing investment of the leader's life into the lives of those who follow. You see, it's easy to say, come follow me. It's another thing to make the time and effort to invest in the lives of those that follow you. A few months ago, I had the privilege of ministering to a group on a farm there in Bronkhorstspruit. There's a group of Christian businessmen, and I had to speak on the subject diversity in the workplace. And there was a gentleman who actually started this movement called Worklife in America. He's the grandson of Billy Graham. Guy's name is Steve, I don't know the surname, can't remember the surname again. But he just it just challenged my mind on how Jesus dealt with diversity in his team and some of the leadership dynamics there. And he said, Jesus had about 3 years to train the team, coach them, and take them through a very intense process to take on the Great Commission. But biblical historians would suggest that for the first 18 months, he basically just performed 2 miracles. And the one miracle happened there in a rural area in Canaan, in Cana. At a wedding, the wine got finished. And he turned wedding into wine. Water into wine. You can say I haven't drank for 34 years. I don't know the terminology anymore. I don't know wine talk anymore. That's why I'm getting a little bit confused. He spent the first half with his team developing relationships. They all expected him to come and perform spectacular stuff. And he will be there on the mountain. Blessed are those. Blessed are those. Come on, show up, Messiah. Blessed are those. Come on, show us a sign. Blessed are those. And Steve made a statement that I will never forget. The way you attract will be the way you retain. Jesus attracted people through relationship building. And this is what leaders should do. You see, if you attract people through big bang stuff, today it's a deliverance ministry, tomorrow it's something else, and it's program after program, you won't be able to retain them. But invest in relationships. That is what leaders should do. It's easy. And that's why, because people can't sustain relationships, they even veer into the flesh. They start selling you oil nowadays. Holy oil, anointed oil from Jerusalem. And the stuff had been bought at Massmart. Holy water. If you drink this water, all your troubles will go away. But the true leaders, leading like Jesus, means to invest in relationship. Am I talking to the right audience here? Walking that extra mile with people. You see, by being a performance coach and changing his leadership style appropriately, the disciples developed individually and as a collective, as a group. And Jesus empowered them to carry on this mission long after he was gone. And today, we're reaping the benefits of an investment in people for just 3 years. Through his hands, through effective leadership behavior, he was able to transmit what was in his heart and head about servant leadership. And there are just about 3 aspects of this performance-based coaching that I want to touch with you. One, it's performance planning. It's every leader's responsibility to make sure that there's absolute clarity of direction. You must set clear goals. And we normally speak of SMART goals, the simple, the measurable. What is the other one? Come on, talk to me. Attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Leaders must assert themselves in setting organizational goals. And you can't leave that to chance. You can't delegate it to somebody. Imagine if Moses went up to the mountain with a committee to collect the 10 commandments. We would have had 10 versions of it, isn't it? There's certain assignments which God entrusts onto you. And the buck, Mr. and Mrs. Leader, stops with you. You can't delegate it. The second thing is the day-to-day coaching. observing performance, redirecting efforts that are off the mark, and calibrating people's efforts into what the real thing is all about. And making sure that at all times you affirm and validate progress, getting the best out of them. But the third aspect is performance evaluation, where you from time to time give honest feedback. And it's not to bring them into condemnation, but to stretch their minds on what they can ultimately become. You see, when Jesus called his disciples, they brought life experience from their occupational backgrounds, but they didn't have a clue how to be fishers of men. This was a total different ball game. A ball game that might, initially sounded strange and foreign. Us, fishers of men. But after spending 3 years under his leadership, the disciples were transformed from untrained novices to fully equipped, inspired, and spiritually grounded leaders to fulfill the Great Commission. In a space of 3 years, they were transformed from "come follow me" to "go into this world." What a radical transformation. Come follow me. And in 3 years' time, they were equipped. You see, the Great Commission has got three elements in it. It's about deliverance, it's about development, and it's about deployment. It's not just about I've been delivered, I've got Jesus, I'm on my way to heaven. You need to be developed so that you can be deployed. To go into the world, and as Brother Moen said, to be the salt and the light, having an influence, a godly influence in your environment there. Now, we know that Jesus grew up in a home where his father was a carpenter, and he also learned the trade of being a carpenter. People sometimes refer to him, "Oh, are you talking about that boy, the carpenter's son?" And through that process, Jesus also learned a lot of leadership lessons, how a carpenter is developed. And there are 4 stages of learning any new practical skill. The one is you're a novice, somebody just starting out. Then you translate into an apprentice, someone in training. Then thirdly, you become a journeyman, somebody capably working on his own. And fourthly, you can become a master teacher, someone highly skilled and able to teach others. And the key role of a leader is to facilitate this environment where the learner can be successfully progress through every stage. And I just want to take you for the next few minutes through my learning experience from being a novice to being a master. Yes, I remember that day when we were standing here shivering and the master facilitator from Lead Like Jesus in attendance, and we had to present here. Today, I'm sure you can at least give me 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, Brother Moen, for effort here today. That I've progressed after the last 3 years to be in a position to teach others. Now, I come from a place called Alabama, in Klerksdorp. Who knows Klerksdorp here? Yeah. Remember Orkney Snorkney? That's where we come from. Born out of a family of 8 and being the eldest. And you know those days in township life, there were a lot of limitations and options were not diverse as it is today. If you became a teacher, a policeman or whatever, you've made it, you know. Occasionally you hear about a lawyer and a doctor. And if you had a telephone in your house, you were very rich those days. And a fridge as well, you know. You're very rich those days. And this is the environment in which I grew up. But I always had destiny on my mind. At school, I aspired always to become number 1, prefecting the class, all sort of things. Brought up in a very religious home, in die apostolic kerk. I was brought up as an apostoli, you We didn't go to movies and all those sort of things. Very strict. Devil on the box, in the TV and all those sort of things. Remember those days? Brought up very religiously, in apostolic care. And at some stage, I drifted away from God. For 14 years, I didn't put my foot in a church. Out there in the world, getting drunk, jumping on the tables. Let's get it on. Marvin Catholic. Hey. During that time, I also joined the nursing profession. And, I grew through the ranks, novice, apprentice, until I became a journeyman after 3 years. And then from there, I got my degree in nursing. I started becoming a teacher, lecturer in the nursing college, and so on. Something very significant also happened during that time. On the 19th of July, 1979, Ward 7, night shift. Your imaginations are fertile. Eh? Just hold on. I'm busy taking you somewhere. I saw somebody who I was, training with for years, but all of a sudden we started working for the first time. We worked in the same environment. She was my senior, a little bit my senior. Young. We worked for 7 nights and we were 7 nights off. I tell you, that was the longest 7 nights of my life. How do I contact this lady? How do I tell her what's in my heart? And then the 7 nights came back and I was capable to put my case on the table. And it was first up for consideration and I got impatient. It's too bureaucratic. I wanted an answer now. It didn't work. I had to wait. But ultimately the answer came through, and through God's grace, 4th of December 1981, we got married. And yes, God blessed us with 3 wonderful children. We're now in that stage of the empty nest syndrome. The house is empty now. We've exported the eldest girl to Australia. The others are here in Joburg. And I'm watching Seven de Laan alone with a cat in the afternoon. The house is empty now. But you guys mustn't so laugh too much. You're distracting me, because you provoke me to tell more nonsense, more funny things. Nevertheless, a year after we got married, we spent our first winter in a caravan. No house. A tented caravan. When the caravan is wet, we must put on the heater the whole day to dry it up. It's bad times. But on the 9th of October, 1982, in a small little church there, an altar call was made and I gave my life to Christ. And instead of my life going south, it went up north. I never looked back, and what I've accomplished in life was but by the grace of God. Fast track. I was very active in my community, always, helping people and developing people and so on. And then came the elections, 1994. And the ruling party approached me. I submitted it to my pastor. We spent about 2 weeks praying together. He got confirmation from the Lord. This is the area in which the Lord wants to lead you. Ended up in politics, Northwest Provincial Legislature. I got elected there. And in a matter of few days, my life turned around because we were sworn in the Saturday. The next week, Thursday, my premier by that time was Popom Life. He made an announcement about who's going to be in his cabinet. And when he read number 7, he said, the finance portfolio will go to Martin Kuscus. Now, I didn't know a debit from a credit, okay? And here I'm called upon. And here I'm called upon to manage 4.8 billion rand. My only training was my civil servant salary, you know. I knew how to tithe. I knew all those things. That was the basics. And through God's grace, I completed 2 successful terms there. I still hold the distinction of being, myself and Jabu Mleketi, with the longest serving MECs, uninterrupted, of finance in this country. Heads were rolling all over the place. Through God's grace, I stood there. Now, when your name appears at the golf club as an honorary member, you know your time is up, you know. So I left politics and I ended up at the South African Bureau of Standards, CEO there, and a lot of other things happened in my life. But God led me through a process. There's so many things I can keep you busy with. You know, at some stage, God even took me where I addressed the United Nations General Assembly. I flew for 18 hours. I only spoke for 12 minutes, but I was there, my friend. I was there. Go on Google. Go on Google. You'll see me there. I was there. I was there. I was there. Enough of that. There came a time in my life when God had to put in the pruning scissor. Do you know about a pruning scissor? The titles, the positions, and all these things that created a sense of affirmation in my life, because every meeting I used to go to, I'm Martin Kuscus, the president of this. I'm Martin Kuscus, the CEO of, depending on the occasion, you know. And I was flavor of the month. There came a time when I went into a desert experience. Where, you know, when there were no titles, there was nothing. It was just God. When you meet people in Sandton, all of a sudden they lost their cell phones. I wanted to play golf with you the other day, man. I forgot your number. I lost my cell phone. They didn't forget your number. They forgot about you. You don't mean anything to them anymore. In that time, God had to deal with me. 2 programs changed my life. It was the Encounter year. And a few years ago, I underwent that 9-month program of halftime. God had to refocus my attention on matters of legacy. How do I translate my success and all those life experience into significance? How do I serve my generation? You see, in Acts 13 verse 36, the Bible says David served God's purpose in his own generation. God, how can I serve my generation based on all these wonderful learning experiences that I went through? And you know, that encounter with Lead Like Jesus caused a total paradigm shift in my life. And from there, I had to create a greater margin in my life in terms of time, talent, even treasure, investing into the lives of others. And very clearly, as I started engaging in this process, the Lord crystallized this one sentence in my spirit. Martin, you'll be a thought leader through speaking and writing, developing Christian leaders in the marketplace for kingdom impact. So whatever I do, don't come and tell me stories, let's go and sell paraffin in Zimbabwe. I filter all these proposals. How does the kingdom gonna have, how is this effort gonna have an impact on the kingdom? And whilst I had this paradigm shift of servant leadership and making an kingdom impact, the Lord started opening up beautiful opportunities for me. There's not a single month where I'm not invited to either speak at conferences and all sort of, but I also have time on a one-to-one basis to coach and develop people, mentor people. Jason is my favorite customer. He knows he will pay up. You will pay up. I don't come for, there are no free lunches with me. You must pay. And occasionally I'll pay. Ne, Jason? And God started opening doors for me. Last year or so, even called me to Tanzania, the Kingdom Leadership Network there, facilitating a dialogue between church, government, and business on a new value system for that country. A couple of years when John Maxwell was here, we did Johannesburg, Harare, Durban, all those kind of places. Because of what? Just availing yourself as a servant. No titles. This is not Apostle Martin standing here, okay? Or Bishop Martin. Or Prophet Martin. You know what beats me now? The Afrikaner guys just want to be called professor nowadays. Everybody, they just dishing out professorships, you know. And in the black church, everybody don't want to be a pastor anymore. He wants to be a bishop. Apostle. This thing of pastor is just too common. And yet God has just made me a servant of the Most High. That's all I'm doing. Being a servant. Let's land this plane. Fasten your seatbelts. We are on descent. Fold your tables. We're about to land. Dr. Miles Monroe made this statement once. He said, no matter how much you may learn, achieve, accumulate, or accomplish, if it dies with you, then you are a generational failure. We owe it to the next generation to invest in them. And that leadership behavior, if we don't pass the right value system on to the next generation, if we will have a distorted type of leadership in the next generation. We owe it to the next generation. Through the work of our hands, we can leave a legacy of effective leadership behavior that will inspire others and worthy of being emulated. Rob McFarland once said, when we consider the speed of change demanding the constant learning of new skills, and our mobile society, the need for coaching and mentoring increases, we often forget how powerful it is when somebody believes in us. You know, I will forever be thankful for people who believed in me. Regardless of my shortcomings, they say there's potential here. Can I help you, young man? Are you prepared to walk a journey with me? And they will ask the hard questions and the tough questions in my life, coaching and developing me and mentoring me. You see, leaders should not only impress, but consciously and deliberately impart life experiences to others. Too much of leadership revolves around platform personalities and very little in impartation. You see, leadership is not just thought. It's not just taught, it's primarily caught. The presence of the leader, as you walk around, people should actually aspire to be like you. Yes, we can catch the spirit of a leader because, you know, wherever we go, people view us either as a shepherd or a herdsman. A shepherd leads. A herdsman is just forever with a shambok there. Come on. People will see us either as a CEO or a commander. What do I mean of as a CEO? Not a chief executive officer, but a chief encouragement officer. Not just there to command and give instructions. People will see you as a giver and not just a taker. People will see you as one that gives clarity of direction and just don't show confusion about what's the name. I don't know. Let's have a committee. Let's consult. Let's have a board of inquiry. No. You will have absolute clarity of direction. And they will see in you as somebody that glorifies God through the work of your hands, and you're not on an ego trip building a fan club. And that's why I want to end up by saying, we're in a different kingdom, subscribing to a different value system. necessitating a different approach because we serve a different King. The ultimate King of kings and the Lord of lords, who showed us the example that true greatness is found in servanthood. Are you prepared to be a servant? God bless you.